The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello everyone. Welcome to the Posturology Applied webinar. Got a couple of cases that are being sent in. I've got some of my own thrown together, so definitely want to give those folks a chance to jump in, and I will also apologize as we get started because I seem to have misplaced my mouse, so my cursor function will not be as smooth as normal. I'm going to do a little roll call here, see who's got audio and who doesn't. Mr. Greg Young.
Hello, can you hear me?
We hear you fine. Rita Franklin.
Hey, Tracy.
Hey. All right, let's see who's next. Renee. Oh. All right, Renee. Oh, no mic. Okay, well, let's see if I can manage here. So we're going to go with that. The ever wonderful Marion Chin.
Here.
And next, is that Ivani?
Tracy.
Hey.
I have workers at my house still. I think you probably want to mute me for the duration.
Okay. I don't know. It sounds like you're doing some pretty serious therapy. You are one solid. Man, your patients are really committed. I tell you what. Okay. Well, if you have something to say, raise your hand, and then we can go from there. Okay?
Sure. Thanks.
Okay. Thanks. Okay. Gosh, Ivani, I thought the saws were at your house. All right. Next, Felicie Solomon.
Yes, I'm here.
There she is.
Good evening, y'all.
The star of our show. I am going to send an audio pin to Mr. Derek Oliver, whose hand is up already. He's ready to go. So Derek, just use the question box and send me a note and let me know what's going on. And then also Brandon, who's sending a note. No mic, no worries. All right. Rats. We always love it when people come to play. You're going to get a quick look at my email account. There you go. Has anybody seen attachment on here?
No.
No. All right. Well, we got somebody working out the bugs of their email system. You know who. Okay. So I think we've got most everyone present. And
Is Don Wheeler with us this time?
Don is not with us yet, so I'm trying to work out some bugs. I don't know if my wrist can take all this mousing and clicking, so we'll see how well we do. Let me get this quick note out, and I'll see what I can do. Last week I could do everything because I had a helper. So with Randy being present, so I'm gonna respond to some quick notes here. And then audio stuff sent out. And I think we're going to just kind of review the format real quick. So what we're going to do for those of you who are new to the format is we're going to run through some cases, and you see one on the board already. And I'm actually waiting for the person responsible for this case to show up.
I don't see the case.
I don't see it either.
You don't see my screen yet?
No.
No.
Oh, good. We just have audio. Good. So you're not seeing all the behind-the-scenes stuff. That's good. Actually, I'm relieved at that. If you guys can hold on before we actually start the webinar. Hello. Hey, Merle. Yeah. Are you on? I just can't see you. Oh, man.
And I don't have nothing up there. Just saying verifying. What's the name? Verifying. Sync up here again.
All right. Let me.
I verified the internet for the last 15 minutes.
All right. Well, you'll have to have you restarted several times.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you see the webinar ID?
You know what? Let me go back on.
Don't worry, all. I haven't gone anywhere. Just helping get someone set up real quick. Start recording, show everybody what's going on. I'm here. You can see me now, correct?
Yes.
Yes. I lost one. Who did I lose? Well. Hopefully it's a minor bug, and they'll be back. Derek Oliver.
Hello.
There, he's back. Okay, good.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you now.
Oh, thank you.
Good. All right, hang in there, and we're going to try and get going here. So we're going to start by reviewing what we're going to go over with the webinar. So one of the things that I want to start with is is just the basic format. And the basic format is that we're going to go over these 4 questions here: the lower limb length inequality, fixation, subtle proprioceptive mechanisms, the demands of the writing reflex. And then what we're going to do is we are going to go over how to, some treatment ideas or things we might do with a specific case. So the person that I've been working with is actually the person who submitted this case, and so that's why we're trying to figure out what we're missing and what we can do to get him on board so that he can go through the case history as best he can. So we may go through this, get a little bit of an echo because I have him on the phone, and that way we can hopefully have him on board. So let me just check in with him real quick. Hey, Merle.
I'm good.
Are you picking up the webinar at all, or is it still giving pain?
No.
Okay, and you're on Firefox.
Well, today's talking. I'm going to shut the computer down and restart it and go restart it first.
Okay. All right. So, yep, we're gonna actually go back to your case in just a moment, and we'll start with one of my cases. So, how's that? That's fair to everyone, right? Since we're hanging on here. This is the world of webinars, you know. Excuse me. It's never clean. It's always fun. And, hopefully we'll get it right in the end and everybody will be smarter and better as a therapist. So here we have a case, and we have a person here with a sciatica on the right and some mid-thoracic pain. So you can see here we put their complaints. This is a female in her late 40s, and so these were her presenting complaints. She's been in for a handful of treatments, but really just a handful of treatments. So her, with the sciatica being the presenting complaint, you get some idea of some of the treatment that went on, along with the mid-thoracic pain, just by the muscles that have been colored in here. So what we're going to do is we're going to simply start out with the definitions of what we're looking at, just so we can review that and make sure that everybody's on the same page. So the first definition that we're looking for is a lower limb length inequality, or an LLLI. And I am going to invite Ramona. Hey, Ramona. Hey, Ramona. Okay, I'm going to invite Greg.
Yes.
To give us a definition for lower limb length inequality.
Definition might be tough, but my understanding of it is if the trochanters measure not on horizontal relative in the standing position, do not measure horizontal. And then confirming that in the supine, if there is a larger distance between the trochanter line and the foot line on one side versus the other.
Okay. Let's try that.
Not
that
real
actually
concise.
that was a great job of actually going through the landmarks that we're looking at. So, did everyone understand that? Go ahead and raise your hand if you did. To raise your hand, there's a little bar at the top of your screen, And there's a piece where you can raise your hand. Okay, good. Okay, got a handful. Okay, good. So, what a lower limb length inequality is, in a nutshell, the short answer, one leg being shorter than the other. Very simply. The next part of that question was going to be, what are the landmarks that we're looking for? And Greg simply summed it up. We're looking at the trochanter. We're looking at the tibia, and we're looking at the heel pads. So the tibia and the heel pads, those three. And there we go. So trochanter, tibia, heel pads. Trochanter, tibias, heel pads. Okay. Next question is, in looking at this case, Greg, would you submit that there is a lower limb length inequality?
Yes, I would.
Yes, he would. Okay, and we'll give some others a chance to disagree. Anybody disagree? Raise your hand. Click that little hand icon. All right. Derek, what do you see?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. Did I? I didn't mean to disagree.
Oh, okay. All right, I'll put your hand down. Felicia.
Oh, okay. You put it down. All right. All right.
Felicia, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I just realized the chart's changed. So I was still looking at the first chart.
Oh, sorry. Yep.
I had copied off the chart. That's what I was looking at.
Oh, you were making notes at home. Look at that.
Yeah.
What a great method.
Yeah. But now looking at your second chart here, I would agree. Is it Derek? That there is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Greg. Yep.
And
yes. And you can see, Greg, which part of this would you say was shorter?
Looking at the standing position, the trochanter measurement's lower on the left, so the left leg's shorter, and then in supine, it looks like it confirms that as well.
Yep, and that's shorter as well. So, and for those of you who are keeping notes, I will submit to you that this, through X-ray, we discovered was 9 millimeters shorter.
Wow.
So almost a whole centimeter. And you can see some of the effects of having a shorter limb here with this 22-degree flexion distortion on the left side here. So 22 degrees, pretty big difference. So that was part of the adaptation, even with the lift. It was still 22 degrees. So that's what you're seeing. Okay, so our next question that we're going to ask is, we're looking to find out if there are any fixations. So the first question to ask is, what is a fixation, and how do we define that? And Renee would like to answer that question, but he can't because there's no audio. I just want to check in with Rita. Hey, Rita.
Yes.
You still have power tools going?
Oh, no, now we're in negotiations.
Oh, okay. Never mind. I'll mute you again. That's just plain fun. Okay, Marion, would you offer, please, a definition for a fixation?
The fixation is a distortion that remains the same from standing to supine.
That's a very simple definition. So a distortion that remains from standing to supine. So, given that, our next question is, do we have that situation? And raise your hand when you know the answer. Somebody had their hand up and put it back down. Derek, I can hear Derek thinking. Think about that for a moment. Let me know.
Hello.
Hey, Ramona.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. We're asking a key
yes.
question, and you know what, Ramona? You're going to answer it.
Oh, great. What's the question?
How many fixations do you see?
None.
Yes, you're right.
Yeah, there are no fixations.
Okay. So, does anybody disagree with that? No. You know why? Marion? Tell them
No,
why.
there are none. There are none. I don't see any. Should I be seeing one?
Just kind of expand upon that a little bit, because there are some people here who this is their first webinar.
Yeah, the sheets in the dryer are clean. I need to fold them. I need to fold the towels on top, too.
Well, Tracy?
He's been abducted
Okay.
by aliens.
Go ahead.
So you were asking why. I was going to say the ASIS, although it was distorted in the standing position, went to normal in the supine, so therefore it's not a fixation.
Great. And the same with the shoulders, same with everything else. Do you see that, Brandon? If you can see that, just raise your hand, because I want to make sure you're clear on it. Okay. Great. Good job. And Derek's clear on it, too. Excellent. So, there are no fixations because when they lie down, everything goes to balance and equilibrium, which actually makes our next one really clear as well, right? So the next question is, how many subtle proprioceptive mechanisms? Felicie, can you offer us a definition for subtle proprioceptive mechanisms?
Okay.
Keep it simple.
Okay. It's distortions from standing to supine that are opposite without being normal in supine. In other words, you go from standing to supine the distortion changes to its opposing position in supine. But you do not include the normal if it goes to normal. I don't know how to say that. It's simpler.
It's a measurement that changes from standing to supine and ends in distortion.
Okay.
A measurement that
That's
changes
great.
from standing to supine and ends up distorted.
Okay, thank you.
So you're saying that if it's normal and then it goes into distortion, that's an SPM2.
That's
correct?
correct. Yes, so it could be normal. Doesn't have to be distorted. Oh, we got some good laughter going. Who's got the jokes? Okay. Ivani. Let's see. I got a question for you, Ivani. If you can type in your question again, please, that would be most beneficial. Because I think we were looking at fixations. So I want to go back for Ivani and just if you can raise your hand if you were clear on the fixations. Okay. So maybe not clear on the fixations. So let me review this for you. Felici, what are the measurements that we look at for fixations and for subtle proprioceptive mechanisms?
Okay. For both of them, you look for the measurements that are the trochanter and above. Right? You don't include the tibial tuberosity or the malleolus.
And actually, we don't include the trochanter, so it's the ASI.
Oh, no, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, you got me.
Hey, make a mistake, then learn the lesson, right?
Yes.
So you know who learns the most is the one who makes the most mistakes. So we're good. Okay. So our next question that we were at had to do with subtle proprioceptive mechanisms. So the question is, are there any subtle proprioceptive mechanisms?
Yes.
Oh, don't say it out loud.
Oh.
Raise your hand. Raise your hand when you know. Are there any subtle proprioceptive mechanisms? Okay. Waiting for a couple of respondents. Brandon, I know you kind of feel like you're along for the ride, so I want to know if you can tell me, just go ahead and type it in the question section, if there are any subtle proprioceptive mechanisms. In other words, something that changed that ended in distortion. Brandon says no, there are none. So let's see who's with us. Ramona McDonald.
I am here.
Okay.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah. Do you see any subtle proprioceptive mechanisms?
No. There is
No.
none.
All right. See, latecomer, but she's on top of it. knows the definitions. So, great. And Rita's back. Do you have a question, Rita?
No, I had my hand up.
Oh, you just know the answer.
I did.
Excellent. Which you knew was none, right?
None. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, good. That could have been fun and embarrassing for us. The next question, as we press on through this, is going to have to do with the writing reflexes. And I know I got a couple of emails about the writing reflexes after the last webinar, which was just like 2 weeks ago. But at the last webinar, there was something we got to have some fun with the writing reflexes, and there were a couple of confusing cases. So really the thing with the writing reflexes has to do with a simple definition. And Greg, I wanted to ask you to give us your understanding of the definition for a writing reflex. In other words, are they meeting the demands of the writing reflex?
Okay. What I understand of that is that, for example, the ASIS measurement corresponding with the occiput, or is that going to...
Right.
Go
ahead.
Sorry. I was just saying, basically, do the temporal bones and the occiputs end up on the horizontal? Is that the ultimate goal of the writing reflex?
Right. The ultimate goal of the writing reflex is to get you to be balanced, to be upright. So because we're bipedal mammals, we have to make all of these corrections. If there's a distortion lower, it's got to be countered above. If there's an imbalance lower, there has to be a counterbalance somewhere above. And depending on the magnitude of that counterbalance, there may be another counterbalance and another counterbalance as you see someone's posture go back and forth and back and forth. So really the question is, in looking at this, typically in the Lovett-reactor relationship. So another way of asking the question, do they meet the demands of the writing reflex, is, do they follow the Lovett-reactor relationship? So as you're going back and forth, do they follow the Lovett-reactor relationship? The Lovett-reactor has certain rules, and those rules, one of the key rules is that it has to that the temporal bones and the iliums have a reflexive relationship. And that's measured, as you said, by the external auditory meatus and the ASIS. The next being the sacrum and the occiput. So with the sacrum, that's the PSIS, the occiput being, as we all know, the occiput itself. So, with the sacrum and the occiput, those should go opposite directions as well. So these should go opposite. The temporal bones and the iliums, the occiput and the sacrum should go the opposite as well if one is following the Lovett-reactor relationship. Here's an exception to this rule, if the temporal bones and or the occiput, if one of these upper landmarks goes to balance in equilibrium, that is a positive benefit. We say that in that case they're still meeting the demands of the writing reflex. What's happening is the body is limiting the distortion to something below the cranium. And we think that that's more functional. And the reason why we think that's more functional is because at the occiput, the brainstem is nearby there. And we think that's the most important part of our nervous system because that regulates all of the autonomic functions. So if we can protect if we can do some sort of adaptation that protects the brainstem and the brain itself, we're saying that that is the ultimate healthy response. Are you with me on that one, Greg?
Yes, so that in that case they are meeting the demands, considered to have met the demands?
So yes, if these were level, they would have been considered to meet the demands of the writing reflex. That is true.
Okay.
Marion, did you have a point you wanted to add?
I was just thinking that I often, to say it more simply to me, I just say, you're going to look at 4 structures. You first look if there's a structural imbalance in the ASIS. Did the auditory meatus go to level or reverse? They met. If it's a rotation, you have to look at that, as well as the in-flare, out-flare, the obliquity. So it's in every dimension that you're looking for this to either reverse or normalize in the cranium.
Mm-hmm. Good.
Right? Is that correct?
Yep, that is correct. That is correct. So, I'm trying not to speak too much geek, but I think we're doing okay.
Sorry.
No, that's great. I love it.
No, this is good.
And I think most of us do. So yeah, I think that's helpful. So in this particular case, given our current definition, the question is this person meeting the demands of the writing reflex? So I'm gonna throw that question out. When you think you know, let me know.
The PSIS line, it's kind of hard to read it. What would you call that PSIS?
That's actually inferior on the left. So that one's inferior on the left. All right. So, and Renee has thrown it out with some verve. He has let us know. Brandon's weighed in, so I've got answers from pretty much everybody. Derek, what do you think?
I don't think it is. As I'm looking at the occiput,
Okay.
you know, I see the occiput as well as the temporal bones.
Right.
It's slanted from left to right.
Okay. Yeah, it's inferior on the right.
Yeah, so he's not meeting the demand. He's
Oh. You know, I think our convoluted explanation of the exception may have thrown you off.
Say that again?
I said our explanation of the exceptional case may have thrown you off a little bit, I think. And the reason why I say that is because remember, the Levitt-reactor relationship says the temporal bones and the iliums have an opposing relationship.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so if they have an opposing relationship, then they are meeting the demands of the writing reflex.
Oh. All right. Okay. Go ahead and slap me.
Well, we'll have to depend on someone else to do that. So yes, they are meeting the demands of the writing reflex.
Okay, yes.
Yeah. And so the reason why they're meeting the demands is the PSIS is superior on the right, and the occiput is inferior on the right. The ASIS is inferior on the left. The temporal bones are superior on the left.
All right, I got you.
Okay. Good. Now, Brandon, I think maybe has a question. Oh, no, he's just hopefully just reminding us that he did have that answer correct. So thanks very much, Brandon. Way to go. I did note that before I went on. As well as Renee, who is making this a lot of fun. I wish you guys could hear what Renee had to say. The next segment that we're going to look at with this is, where do you start? Where do you start in a treatment plan with someone like this? Especially when you look at this 22 degrees of anteversion. Guys, a moment to mull that over. Getting some feedback from some people online. I'm curious to know if anybody else is going to jump in here with some information. Ivani?
I think I will.
All right, Derek's jumping in. Ramona, where would you start?
Probably work the quad first.
Probably start with the quads. Why the quads?
Yeah. 22. Quad's probably going to flexion.
Say that again?
Because of 22 flexion.
Because of the 22 degrees of flexion, yeah. And they're big and strong. They're big and powerful. Some other options because of the big and strong and powerful quads. Brandon, go ahead and type in what you think in the question section. And I'll come back to that. And Derek, what else do you have in mind?
Well, since there's the leg length difference, and you say it's 9 millimeters,
Right.
I'd have him get that corrected.
Sure.
You know what I mean, with the lift that goes underneath the whole foot, and have that done as quickly as possible, and then recheck it.
Right.
Make sense?
Right. So definitely take care of the leg length inequality. I'm going to go back here. And then since they have sciatica, given their primary complaint, where would you treat? And Renee's already thrown an answer in here. I want to see if anybody else can get that. Not too much pressure. So what are some of the muscles that can be key in a sciatica, that mimic sciatica?
Are you asking me?
I'm asking you. I'm asking anybody who wants to jump in.
Oh, okay.
Felicie, where would you go?
I was going to to go to the hip rotators, the piriformis, and those to see if they need to be loosened up. I actually was a little concerned about jumping right to the leg length difference, because wouldn't you want to get rid of the flexion so that you could get a better measurement of what the real difference is?
No, obliquity is really the bigger concern with that from our experience. So a flexion distortion in and of itself, or an anteversion distortion in and of itself, is usually not enough to throw off an X-ray dramatically, but an obliquity seems to have that capacity. So, if there was an obliquity, I would submit that yeah, that might be more of an issue. But with a flexion distortion, we don't think that so much. Okay. So yeah, no. Our first thing, the reason why lower limb length inequality is the first question is because we know that if someone has one leg shorter than the other, it doesn't matter what therapy we do, they're not going to get better. As soon as they stand up, they go right back into that distortion. So, Marion, can you move your mic just a little bit away from your chin?
Oh, sorry.
No, that's okay. And then, so the piriformis, we got some of that. There's a little bit of a hint up here in the cervical spine. A little bit of a hint here. You might be able to see the marking here that was key for this person. And also look at this right here with the head forward posture, right? So that's going to give us some clue as to some key areas to work. Even though sciatica, mid-thoracic pain are key, one of the things we know is that, with the head going forward, that's something we really want to manage. We really want to try and take care of. So, definitely a tricky situation with that. Greg.
Yes.
Being a well-trained in the neuro seminars, is there something we haven't mentioned that you might want to throw in here as far as a treatment intervention?
I'm not sure I'm following. I don't see the visceral component. Doesn't seem to be there.
Right. Okay.
Are you thinking more in cranium?
Maybe in the cranium. So you'd look at the cranium.
Well,
What else?
give me a clue.
All right. You were on track. You were right on track. So yeah, we're looking at the cranium. We're looking at the atlas.
I didn't take that one.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
haven't taken that one yet.
Oh, well, we gotta get you on the stick there, man.
That's my last one.
Yeah, and Marion.
Well, I was looking at the projection of atlas and axis. They look like they're probably projected. And
Right.
to work the anterior throat so that they could, get that back. My other question was, you had started to ask what mimics sciatica, and I just wanted to verify my guess I had in my head on what mimics sciatica too.
Great. That would be?
Me?
Yep.
I was thinking gluteus medius and minimus.
Okay.
I'm not sure, but that's why I was going to verify.
Yeah, gluteus medius, gluteus minimus, and also the piriformis will tend to mimic sciatica and can also actually cause sciatica. So those are definitely things we would want to look at. So Ivani was all over that. Way to go, Ivani. Starting on the glutes because they are also big. And then the deep hip rotators. So the question is just muscles or techniques that you would start throwing in there. Renee definitely jumping in on the anterior cervical muscles because of this head forward posture, kind of pulling the head forward. And also add to that the anteversion. The severe anteversion is going to lead to a shortening typically of the anterior cervical muscles. So they're definitely going to go together. So remember, longus coli is what Ida Rolf called the psoas of the neck. So definitely want to involve all of those. Sadly, unfortunately, our contributor is dropped off, so I'm going to go to another case history. Good job on that. Does everybody want to just quickly weigh in and let me know if that was a good way to review as far as techniques that you would want to jump in and treat. So
Yes.
yes,
I thought so.
yeah.
I have a question.
Sure, Greg.
And after we've reviewed that, at the very end, if we have a couple of specific questions, could we ask you that?
Sure. That'd be fine.
Okay. And so in this case, their left flexion, anterior flexion of the pelvis was 22. Is that correct? Or excuse me, the right. No, the left.
Yeah, the left was 22, and then
And the right would be, in this case?
This is with a lift. They were both 22.
Ah, okay. So they were equal. Okay.
Yes. And then after the treatment, now this is one of the interesting things, because it's not as logical as you sometimes would think, but if at the beginning of the treatment this was 22, and then the therapist, in this case, focused a lot on the gluteal muscles, but then also quite a bit on the muscles of the low back and the thoracic spine, right? And they found all of these to be very sensitive, but then they ended up, after the treatment, with a 10-degree anteversion of the pelvis. So they cut the angle of the pelvis in half by doing the treatment. Why would treating the gluteal muscles and the deep hip rotators have a role in that? What is one possible explanation that could happen? Ramona. Oh.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm putting you on the spot, Ramona.
I know. I'm assuming it's because of the...
Speak really loud.
Okay, you can't hear me on this thing?
Not very well.
Is it because of the QL being tight and kind of pulling that hip into an introversion?
Yeah, the
And
QL.
the glutes and all that? Yeah, and actually the erector spinae is probably doing that too.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of putting that sway back in there.
Right. So my question is, if we worked on the glutes and the QL, right?
Oh.
Theoretically, that should just keep it the same because he worked on both. So I'm wondering, what is an explanation? Why would treating this actually make an improvement here?
That's a good question, Tracy.
Okay.
No.
I was just wondering if someone wanted to volunteer. So, Marion, what do you think it might be?
I want to venture a guess.
Okay.
I'm going to guess that was some of it. The glutes were locked eccentrically. Therefore, it was an eccentric contraction.
They were locked eccentrically, so an eccentric contraction. Yeah, that's one possible explanation. And there's a conclusion that goes along with that. So let's see if Greg comes up with it.
Well, I'm wondering if maybe there was, with the pressure on the nerve, the sciatic pain they were having, there was a reaction in that regard to splinting.
To splinting it, right? Right. Usually with splinting, though, you would get a retroversion.
Okay.
Right. So here's what I'm going to offer to you. If you remember from the lectures, for those of you who've taken the shoulder course, and I know some of you may not have taken the shoulder course yet, but the lectures in the shoulder course talk about one particular muscle that is an elevator. And we used to think that it was a depressor because when we treated it, the shoulder would elevate. Does anybody remember that muscle?
Elevators.
Yeah, jump in.
Not the deltoid, is it?
It's not the levator. It's not the deltoid. It's the serratus anterior.
Oh.
So the serratus anterior is actually an elevator of the scapula, but if it has trigger points, it's inhibited, and it cannot elevate the scapula. So it's possible, that's my extrapolation, it's possible that because of trigger points in some of the gluteal muscles, that's actually inhibiting the muscle's ability to contract, because if it tries to tighten, it's going to activate those trigger points, cause firing down the leg. So the body's defense is to try to weaken the muscle, to not use it, and the result is that you end up with, elongated muscles that are still complaining, right? And they're unable to actually do the contraction the way that they need to. Okay. I'm going to... Ramona, you got some more on that?
So are you saying that's what's causing the sciatica pain too?
Yeah, trigger points is going to, in those tissues, are going to mimic the sciatica, and it could also weaken the muscle both. Yeah.
Weaken which muscle?
The retroverters of the pelvis.
Oh, not the... I'm just trying to... You say it's going to weaken the serratus.
No. The serratus was an example from the lecture.
I got it. Okay.
That we make a big deal out of.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that's something that Travell would point to and say the serratus is an elevator of the scapula. But when it has trigger points, it doesn't do the job of elevating. Whereas most muscles are shortened when they have trigger points. But in this case, they don't. Okay. A good, fun, exceptional case. Every once in a while, you got to have one. Seems like all the time. All right. I wanted to show you a chart just as a preview, because we have been discussing and are starting to formulate a plan to put into work a webinar series, because it seems like these are working out pretty well, and the feedback we're getting is that the webinars are fun and informative. And so one of the things that I wanted to put up was this chart, which I'm referring to as case number 3 for today's webinar. And even though we're not going to go through all of the cases here, what I wanted to do was just point out that this is a fairly simple case, someone who came in presented with sinus problems, and yet you can see that the therapist actually spent much of the time going through the Batch flower essences. Some of you know them as the Bach flower essences. The Batch flower essences as a method for helping this person, and I just wanted to put that up as a flash. We are working on the planning stage for the Batch Flower Essence webinar series. There are 38 essences, so we are trying to figure out how in the heck are we going to piece together 38 essences in a reasonable amount of time. So one of the questions that I would like to submit to you, if you can make a note and send an email to posturology@gmail.com, and let me know, is there a plan, do you like a weekly webinar, twice a month, something like that, and we're going to try to put together a package where we can go through the batch flower essences. It's definitely going to be more of a lecture and case history and interview, and there'll probably be some books or something, an e-book or something that's included in that, so that you have a manual you can work off of with your own clients, friends, family. This is definitely a webinar that's going to be open to the general public, so it's not going to be specific to therapists, but it will be specific to just helping someone figure out which of the batch flower essences are appropriate for the individual that you might be interviewing. So, does that sound like fun?
Woohoo!
Sounds like a plan.
That does sound pretty cool.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So, I think we'll get some pretty good response to that. I think it'll be fun too, to piece that together and to get some more explanation. All right. So the next case, you can see I just made a change here. I'm just going to flash this one up because I think what I'm going to do is actually go with another one of mine. But just a quick preview. And I was hoping that we would get the bugs worked out from our other participant, but it seems that it's not going to work. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to open up another case here. So I'm going to blank out the screen for a moment while I figure this out. Oh, neato. Wow. This will be fun. You guys don't mind going into overtime too much, do you? All right. Y'all didn't want to see that football game anyway. All right. Here we go. Showing the screen. You guys get to see this. Someone's very excited right at this moment.
I see my name. Woo!
All right. So we had a question come up real quick. Are these webinars archived? And they are. We're working on putting together a website where you'll be able to go and review these webinars in particular. You'll be able to, and when we do the batch flower one, we'll have those where you can go back and watch them over and over again as well. So yes, we're definitely making plans to have that. I didn't know how much it costs for bandwidth for a website, so we're piecing that together where we'll be able to upload videos and find a way to get you a password or a link where you can download those webinars or watch them online. Okay, so the next case, Ramona, do you want to tell us who this is?
And that is a 40-year-old male that had a car wreck when he was about 25, and they had to do exploratory surgery in his internal organs, that kind of like the lower two quadrants. And he kind of just complains of right arm pain.
Okay.
And his cranial stuff's really messed up. So that's pretty much about it.
Okay, so he presented with right arm pain. He was in a car accident, and how long ago was the car accident?
I think about 15 years ago, 15, 20 years ago. Let's see. Yeah, it's about 15 years ago was a car accident.
Okay. So that was a while ago. All right. I'm going to get just a little organized here. Okay, so looking at this case, would you submit the possibility of a leg length inequality, a lower limb length inequality? So that's really the first question that we need to work out. When you think you know, raise your hand. Is one leg shorter than the other?
Just to let you know, there's supposed to be 2 straight lines in the supine measurement.
These are supposed to be
The
straight?
bottom one. Yeah, I didn't mark them, but yeah, they're straight lines, just to let everybody know.
Okay. Another, at what landmarks?
Oh my gosh, it's a blank. The feet and the tibias.
Okay. So the feet and the tibia, so that's implied, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Great. So, because they're not on there, they're implied to be level. Okay. So, Derek. Young Derek. Does this person appear to have a lower limb length inequality?
Not really.
Not really.
No, because his heels are the same whether they're standing or in the supine position.
Okay, so what you're saying is, if this is level, and this is level, that means they don't have a limb length inequality.
And at the tibias.
At the tibias. So if these lines are parallel, and these lines are parallel, that tells you that the tibias are the same length, right? Okay. So if this is parallel and this is, that's not parallel, is it? So what does that tell us? Would you say, given this measurement, would you say that the femurs are the same length?
No.
No.
No, the left femur is shorter.
So the left femur is shorter. That's what we have. Okay, so let me ask again. Does this person have a lower limb length inequality?
Yes, they have a lower leg.
Okay. And what would you do if you found this? You'd send them to go get a film made, right? Go get an x-ray.
Yeah,
That's
definitely.
what that means. Okay, good. So the next question is, does this person have any fixations? Any fixations? All right. Felici.
Yes, he does.
How many fixations do you see?
Okay.
And where are
at
they?
First,
Call them out.
At first I thought 3, but there may be more. The first, starting at the top, the rotation of the cranium
Okay.
remains the same.
Right.
The auditory meatus remains the same.
Okay.
Okay. All right. The rotation at the humeral head
The humeral head.
and the other rotation. Okay. Then, let's see. And we don't count the trochanter, right? So, I am thinking, I think that's it.
Right.
There is one other one, though. I'm sorry. The sternum remains the same. The clavicular heads.
Yeah, the sternum. There we go. Yeah.
4, 5. Looks like 5.
5. Okay. So 5, that's a big chunk.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm assuming everyone can see that. Did we miss any? I don't think so. Wow, that's pretty good. That's a fair amount of treatment we got to work on, right? Yeah. So I'll bet this person's in a lot of pain, aren't they, Ramona? Hey, Ramona?
You know what? Not really.
Not really? He doesn't complain
Can you hear me?
much?
No, he doesn't complain. Just the right shoulder.
Just his right
And,
shoulder, huh?
Just his right shoulder. And his thoracic, he just says his thoracic gets tight, but he doesn't have that much pain.
Yeah. How about when you're poking
And
on him?
kind of, yeah, oh yeah.
Oh, yeah, during the
But,
therapy
there's
session.
kind of the big, do you remember when I told you about the guy that I worked on for so many weeks, and then I did internal organ work on him, and it changed his whole chart?
Right.
This is the guy.
This
right
is
here.
the guy. Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
And
That's
this
good.
is actually, I didn't realize it, but this is a chart. I charted him before I did organ work.
Right. Good. Good.
This is what he
So,
looked like.
yeah, we were going to bring this one up. So the next question is subtle proprioceptive mechanisms, or SPMs. So who's going to weigh in on that? Renee. Renee has been weighing in. He's having a good time. He's going to lay it out for us. Here, let me clean up this drawing here. And then we're going to go into what Renee has offered. So I'm going to systematically draw them in. We've got the occiput. You can see that that's switching, going into distortion. The tilt in the shoulders, right? Switching directions. The obliquity of the cranium, switching directions. And then the ASIS, see the tilt in the ASIS making a change. Did I miss anything? You can all holler out.
No.
No? Okay, good job. Go, Renee. Renee says, bam. So, good. Yeah, exactly. So 4 subtle proprioceptive mechanisms. 5 fixations, a lower limb length inequality. Look at these numbers right here, because I want to cover a key component right here. Ramona mentioned how she had treated this gentleman, and then after studying the organ work, massaged his abdominal viscera, and that made a significant change.
Yeah.
With 4 subtle proprioceptive mechanisms, you would expect that. But one of the things that's key about this is, as you're looking at this chart, which limb looks lower? The left, correct?
Left, yeah.
Yeah. And if the left leg is shorter, typically what we're going to see is something the opposite of this, right? Usually the shorter leg will have the greater angle, the greater anteversion. And in this case, it's actually the opposite, that the longer leg is more anteverted than the shorter leg. Typically when we see that, there is some visceral involvement, and almost always some sort of trauma, whether it be an illness, but usually some sort of accident, like falling out of a tree, getting kicked by a horse, or some sort of car wreck, motorcycle wreck, something like that, getting run over, those kinds of things. So when you see a case like this, you're going to scratch your head, but when you're scratching your head, know that that's actually not a too great of a mystery. It's a mystery, but it's not too great of a mystery. And the reason why it's not too great of a mystery is because of this anteversion, and the function of the organs being such a major player in creating a 20-degree tilt. You with me, Merle? All right, well, hopefully he's got the bugs worked out, so you can see with that 20-degree tilt what's going on there.
Yeah.
Quite an issue there, right? So the next question, is this person meeting the demands of the writing reflex? And I'm actually going to ask someone to specifically let us know that. So are they meeting the demands of the writing reflex? And the person I'm looking for is Merle. But I'm thinking Merle may not have audio going here. So, which is too bad, because I think he'd be all over it. So the question is, are they meeting the demands of the writing reflex? So it's either all the way right or all the way wrong. And I'm going to have check in on Rita. Hey, Rita.
Hey. Still a little noisy here, but...
Is it noisy?
I'm going to guess that they are not.
They are not meeting the demands of the writing reflex.
And the reason I say that is I'm looking at, let's see. Sorry, that's a little distracting in here right now.
It's okay.
The Lovett reactor, so the temporal bones and now my mind's gone blank.
Right, the temporal bones. And what is the relationship?
Temporal bones and the ilium.
And the ilium.
And so they're at the same, they have the same distortion.
Right.
So for that reason, I would say that they are not meeting the demands.
They are not meeting the demands. Correct. Okay, so we know they're not meeting the demands of the writing reflex. We also know they're not meeting the demands of the writing reflex with the PSIS and the occiput. So that's 2 dimensions that they're not meeting the demands of the writing reflex.
However, are
Yes.
they compensating for that with the head tilt?
No, actually the head tilt's kind of, they're trying to compensate with the head tilt and the shear going over, but it's still, this is a distortion within the cranium itself.
Okay.
So they're trying to compensate for it, but what's happening is that they're trying to compensate for the distortion within the cranium, and the real the more healthy response for compensating would be if it was outside of the cranium.
Okay.
Okay. Great. I'll let you get back to negotiating. Thanks for playing.
Thank you.
So, Ramona.
Yes.
Here we have
Yes.
here we have our case with this gentleman, and he is definitely struggling. Now, when you treated him, do you have your charts handy? Do you know what went on the backside of that?
Oh, with the cranial measurements?
Yes.
Is that what you were asking?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, no. After you treated his organs, can you tell us what happened with the chart?
Yeah, he had a really bad sway back, and his shoulders really came anterior. And so when I treated his organs, he actually straightened out. He came way back on the coronal plane, and you could just tell he stood up straighter. He's 6'4", but he didn't look 6'4". But when I finished with him, he looks a lot taller.
No. Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh.
And then the rotation came out too on both of them. The right and left the right side rotation, the right anterior rotation came out. Even the tilt went away when he stood. I
Okay.
did eye work on him too, so that did it too.
All
Oh,
right.
and also I think his atlas straightened out too.
His atlas.
Because that shear, he didn't shear over. Yeah, his atlas. That was the big thing I was trying to fix was his atlas, and that actually straightened out too.
Great. So that gives you some idea that with the atlas, struggling with the atlas, because if you were to ask Paul, where would you start with this person? Well, you would start with the limb length inequality, right? You make that correction. So after you make the correction for the limb length by building up the shoe, then the next thing that you're going to do is you're going to you'll correct for the limb length, and then you'll go to the atlas, right? And then you go to the organs.
Can I ask Ramona a question?
Sure.
Ramona, this is Felicie. What organs did you work? Just in the abdomen, or did you work upper?
I worked them all, girl. He had like exploratory surgery with his what do you call it, lower intestine, and I mean it took me 2 hours of working his internal organs, and I worked his eyes, and and I actually, this guy's a chiropractor I trade out with, and so what ended up happening is I saw him like once a week for 2 hours, and I got nowhere. He kept looking the same, and so finally I said, we're just going to do organ work today, and that's when I saw the changes. And I think I did everything, every organ, the whole organ class, that's what I did.
Yeah. Marion.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to jump in on this?
No, I just was puzzled. Well, I had one
your
thing
hand
that
up.
puzzled me.
Okay.
Oh, I didn't realize it was, sorry.
Oh, okay.
No, but I did have one thing that puzzled me. When I looked at this flexion disorder, 10 degrees on the left and 20 degrees on the right.
Mm-hmm.
And then I looked at the PSIS measurement along with the ASIS, saw it parallel. That just kind of
Right. Well, there's got
struck
to
me
be some information missing,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
An obliquity or something that
Oh, yeah.
that was a fine obliquity, something like that. That's a collapsed arch. There's some other component.
Hemipelvis, maybe?
Hemipelvis, maybe. Something along those lines. So that's why I was curious what else you saw. So Ramona, after you got these amazing results with this guy, what was your what did the chiropractor have to say?
No, he sent me a whole lot more people.
You got real
Yeah,
busy after
buddy.
that, didn't you?
Oh, I did.
So how many people had you treated prior to that in terms of doing the visceral routine?
Not doing the visceral routine, you mean?
No.
How
Just
many people have we
how many visceral treatments had you done?
Oh, before this one?
Yeah.
Probably none.
None.
After the visceral class, before the visceral class, I didn't do many visceral treatments. So this one, I did him, this client, I did him right after I did the visceral class. And I started applying the visceral work, and I've been working on him for a while before the visceral class.
Okay. So
Did I answer your question?
Just to be clear that you're answering the same question that I'm asking, how many people did you treat their organs prior to this guy?
You mean after?
No, before this guy.
Beforehand. Oh, prior? No, nobody.
Nobody.
This is my first.
So this was your first patient that you treated their organs.
Yes. Yes.
Did you guys hear that? Because Ramona, you're going to write me a testimonial. Because this after you took the class, and I want before and after charts. After you took the class, this is a guy you had been treating for several weeks or several months, right?
Yes.
You
almost
took
a year.
Almost a year you'd been training with this guy. You took the NeuroAlp, the second week of the NeuroAlp, which has the visceral organ as part of the training. You went back and you treated this guy's viscera based on the routine that you learned in the class. And and made amazing changes.
Yep. Yes, sir.
All right. Who's ready to sign up? I'm ready to sign up.
I know.
I'm the one that teaches it. So, really, I think that's just tremendous. That's just tremendous that you had that. And with four, correct me if I'm wrong, there's 4 subtle proprioceptive mechanisms. That's really a strong indicator that it's time to, that you might want to, treat that pretty early on. So definitely a good job. Definitely some tremendous input. And I think, it's no wonder Ramona's really excited every time I talk to her because she's getting results. She's applying these techniques and just getting the results, and she knows she's getting the results because of the measurements that she's taken. So I want to encourage you all to, follow my mantra, measure, measure, measure. You can't figure out what to do next. Do some more measuring. Thanks so much for letting me know how you did with that, Ramona. I really appreciate it. Merle, at this point, I'm gonna pick 2 people to submit cases for the next webinar for next month. Okay, is everybody okay with that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Merle, you're gonna be running one of your cases for the webinar, and next month, and then I'm gonna pick eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Marion, I want you to bring a case as well. And so email me at posturology@gmail.com. Posturology@gmail.com, and we'll get in touch, and you can scan some charts and send them in, and we'll get some case histories and put a little more flash on this. And then just as a backup case, Greg, if you can get a case ready, just in case we have some bugs or one of those two people can't make it for whatever reason. Sometimes life happens, and we'll get you, the two of you and potentially Greg, in the next webinar to bring some cases, complex cases that you can't quite figure out what to do with, cases you had tremendous success with, or something like that. So be in touch with me. Thanks so much for participating and for your attention, and look forward to this. Look forward to an announcement for the Batch Flower webinar, and go out and fix some broken people.
Hey, Tracy, this is Marion.
Yes.
Can I